Somebody got to do a documentary and just cover the rollout to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Cover everything around that time. That was like Kanye West, Amber Rose era. He starts saying all this, the Taylor Swift incident. I think Obama called him a jackass around this time. Cover everything around that era. And then especially the rollout, the looking for troubles. You can still find those tweets on Twitter, because Twitter was out, it was popping back then. Not as many people back then as what's on it now, but Twitter was well alive back then. Put all that together. Let people who wasn't there or who wasn't old enough feel that, because this is the best album rollout of all time, and I never see it talked about like that. Very few people, or not very few, but you have to be there to understand how big My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was at the time. This album came out in 2010, and by 2010 Kanye West is already solidified hip-hop legend. He already done a college dropout, he already done late registration, he already done graduation, he already done 808s and heartbreaks. That's two different eras already. His soul sampling era, then he got 808s era, which birthed rappers like Drake, like Kid Cudi, Travis Scott, 808s and heartbreaks, that era. Then he comes with this Dark Fantasy. So think about this, right? This is heralded as one of the best hip-hop albums of all time. And think about this. Kanye's first album came out in 2004, College Dropout. He was only 6 years into his solo career. He produced before that. He did stuff on The Blueprint and for Benny Siegel, The Truth, and we know that part. But he was only 6 years into his solo career. It's astonishing to think about that today, because now Kanye West is going on 20 years. But he was 6 years into his career, from 04 to 2010 when he dropped My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, right? So think about rappers who came out 6 years ago from now. This year is 2022 as I make this video. So rappers that came out 6 years ago, like Lil Uzi Vert, like NBA Youngboy, who came out like 6 years ago. 21 Savage. That would be like Lil Uzi Vert or 21 Savage this year dropping the biggest hip-hop album of all time, and known as one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. That would be like Lil Uzi Vert doing it, or 21 Savage doing it. It's just mind-blowing to think about how fast Kanye escalated to the top. By his 6th year with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, this album was deemed a classic before it ever even came out due to the rollout. This is the biggest album rollout of all time in hip-hop also. It's hard to encapsulate and explain how big the hype was. You had to be there. This was blog era, where new music dropped on blogs. If you put your album, if you had a release date, it was getting leaked. Albums was getting leaked. Blogs was posting new music. Blogs was breaking the music. Kanye had his Good Friday series, where every Friday he would release a new song. And this went on for weeks and weeks, for months. So songs that came out during that Good Friday era, which led up to, it was a part of the rollout to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Some of those songs were Christian Dior Denim Flow, one of my favorite Kanye songs.
Shake next to
Monster, which is the song with that Nicki verse that made the album. The Joy, Pete Rock. Looking for Trouble featuring J. Cole. Bro, when I say Nicki, J. Cole, this was them in the beginning of their career. Nicki didn't even have an album out when My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy came out. J. Cole, he might not have even had an album out. He might have had Friday Night Lights and that's it. It's hard to encapsulate how big this album was. It was already deemed a classic before it ever came out. Now, people around that time, they were saying like, yo, like, one of the things when My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy came out was, I would say like almost half the album had already came out during Good Friday. Like Monster was a part of Good Friday. I believe All of the Lights was. I believe Devil in a New Dress was one of the Good Friday drops. I believe So Appalled and maybe Power were a part of that Good Friday drop. And then some songs leaked, like I said, like your album got leaked like back then. But one of the things people were saying back then, which you don't hear nowadays, you had to just be there. This is like the silly things people say when albums come out, right? And I knew it was silly at the time. They were saying, Well, I don't rate the album as high as you guys, because everyone was going crazy when this album came out. People were like rating it super high. Like, it was a classic the day it dropped, before it even dropped. People who wanted to be contrarians are like, we already heard half the album already. It came out during Good Friday. Like, and my thing was, I said this, bro, in 5, 6, 7, 10 years, no one's gonna remember that half the album came out during Good Friday. People don't even remember what Good Friday was. Like, you had to be there. No one's gonna remember that the album, a bunch of it leaked before the album came out. No one's gonna remember that. They're just gonna listen to the album and be like, yo, this is a great album. So, anywho, my people for Dark Twisted Fantasy. And then you talk about, that's Good Friday, you know, the hype leading up to it. You know, and then you have the actual video rollouts. That was another huge part of this. The video rollout to Runaway, where the production quality, the ballerinas, like, bro, like, the video rollout was another thing. When those videos dropped, bro, people, we was in high school, like, in computer class, like, oh, the video just dropped, leaving our work to go watch these videos. And when, bro, like, it was different, bro. This album, the rollout, biggest hip hop album rollout of all time. This is Kanye again in his 6th year. The way people look at him now, that's how people looked at him back then. That's like someone looking at Lil Uzi Vert right now. He came out 6 years ago. Kanye dropped this in his 6th year. Arguably, everything he dropped before that was a classic. College Dropout, classic. Late Registration, classic. 808s and Heartbreaks, controversial, but classic due to the influence. You know what I mean? Graduation, I think it's a classic. The Good Life, you know what I mean? The album has some bangers. So I say that to say, you had to be there, bro. It was a great time in hip hop. This came out, that's when Kendrick first was coming out. This when Nicki was first coming out. J. Cole was first coming out. Currency caught fire. Wiz was first coming out. Big Sean. All the legends of, you know, now, who are the younger guys, like the older guys, they still look at Kendrick and J. Cole as new guys, bro. These guys are like 10 plus years in. But all those people were coming out at the time. Drake was first coming out. It was a whole new wave of artists. Then you got Kanye dropped this. Bro, the production quality, the amount of, man, and the studio sessions. Kanye will drop these videos and there will be information that came out. Like, yo, he spent $2-3 million on this album. Yo, he got Elton John, he got Rihanna in the studio. He doing so much, like flying people out. It was so much a part of this album, man. Biggest hip hop album rollout of all time. 2010 was an amazing year for hip hop. I'll put it number 1. Because that's like my era. 2010 is my era. That was my coming of age era. I was like, you know, I was a teenager back then. So I put it above like 96, 94, 93. You know, the Illmatic year, the 36 Chambers year. 2010 to me is the best year in hip hop. Like, and this is the best album from that year. And then you think about all the new artists that we got around that time. That didn't happen like with this generation. Like, we got Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole, Wiz, Big Sean, Nicki Minaj, Waka Flocka, if you want to put him in that tier. We got all the Mac Miller. We got all these Nipsey. We got all these new artists like in like one wave. Whew. And the internet, dropping music on the internet, that was just now, you know, really taking off. It was like almost like a digital revolution that brought a whole new wave of artists. So I don't think this generation got that. We kind of just got it, like, okay, NBA Youngboy popped off. Okay, Uzi popped off. Like, back then it came in a wave. Whew. They all popped off at the same time. Maybe they all didn't get started at the same time, but they all started popping at the same time. And that was due to the newness of the internet, dropping music on blogs, Ill Roots, Two Dope Boys, Nah Right. Niggas know, man. If you was there, niggas know. Anyway, be sure to subscribe if you have not already. Top5rapwebsite.com. Peace.